Hello and welcome again to another episode of How to Avoid Murder and Other Awkward Situations. I am your host Dave, and with me always is the lovely Laura. And tonight, we're going to discuss something gruesome and something horrible. We may laugh, we may make some jokes, we use gallows humor here. It's not for the faint of heart, you may be offended. And if you're a delicate boy that plays the drums in an alt-rock band from Chicago, you will be offended. And you probably should listen to something else, something that decent folks listen to. I wouldn't know, because I'm not listening to it. And so, without further ado, let's proceed. Welcome back. It's another episode of How to Avoid Murder and Other Awkward Situations. I'm Dave.
And I'm Laura.
And tonight, I don't know what Laura is going to be talking about. She's been keeping it quite secret here in our little habit hole. Deep underground, we are.
I think this is one you've heard of.
Well, but
it's just such a horrible one. It's just terrifying.
To the dismay of our fans, I may have to actually present one in the next couple weeks. But
well, you should.
I should.
I'm sick of doing all the research myself.
Well, I've got a few lined up here. Okay, but I have no idea what it's going to be, so I'm really excited. I'm crinkling away here with my ice cubes.
Okay.
Let's get going.
Okay. So this is a story that's creeped me out for a long time, because it's kind of one of my recurring nightmare situations, or part of the story is. And really, this is a story in two parts. There are two kind of equally horrific incidents in this, and the first one's the one that's always scared the shit out of me, but really the second part is worse. So there's an awkward situation, to say the least, first. Okay. And then there's a murder. So I gave it away.
Is it a prom dumpster baby?
No.
Because
So let me just preface this by saying I did research a lot of this, and I got a lot of details on the second part of the story, but the first part is fuzzy. It's hard to figure out the exact details of it, and I think it was because it was I don't know. I think it was because it got overshadowed by the second part. There aren't as many stories about it, but also I think that the kid, the guy we're going to talk about, was a minor when the first part happened.
Oh, so the guy that was hiding?
Yeah, but don't give that away. But
okay.
Anyways, yes. But yeah, so it was I found a lot of things that were, the details were slightly conflicting. So it's almost like urban legendy, but I know it actually did happen. The main parts of it actually happened. There's some details that differ here and there, and I couldn't really find which version was accurate. Anyway, this is pretty accurate, I think. So let me just set the scene. It's December 1986. Okay? So there's this family in this town, and the girl, there's two sisters and a dad. The mom had died, and the older sister had either been dating this guy named Danny, or he liked her and she was talking to him a little bit. That's one part that's I'm not super sure when they're actually dating. I think in his mind they were dating, let's just say. So anyways, so she was dating this guy named Daniel LaPlante, who, if you know the story, now you'll know the whole case that we're going to talk about.
Is that French for the plant?
The plant?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not a real super flattering name.
No.
So do you ever wonder how people got their last names? What that ancestor must have been like to have gotten that name? Like someone's last name is Carpenter. You're like, well, their ancestors must have been carpenters.
Yeah, it's weird.
Anyway.
My dad's grandpa's name was nun rapist, which is weird. So, I don't know. Probably a story there, but they changed it at Ellis Island.
Yeah, that makes sense. You don't want to carry that baggage with you to the new country, the new world. All right. So anyways, so at some point this fall, 1986, this girl had been dating or talking to or knew this kid, Danny LaPlante. And he was a teenager. I think he was 15, 16. Anyways, so, but they had broken up or stopped talking or whatever. She got kind of weirded out by him, whatever. So she'd moved on. So December 8th, these two sisters, they're sitting in their house. Their dad was out, and the sisters were sitting at home watching Nightmare on Elm Street, which every self-respecting kid in 1986 did. They were sitting there. They were eating some snacks. They had a box of some kind of snack food in the kitchen. They were getting themselves bowls and watching this movie. So they had noticed like a couple weird little things, like that when it seemed like there was less snack food in the box when they went back in the kitchen than they had remembered there being. Kind of odd.
Oh, creepy.
Mm-hmm. It is creepy. So anyways, the movie finishes. The girls go to get ready for bed. The dad comes home, and the younger daughter, who was like 8 or 9, was in her bedroom. She opens up her closet, and there is Danny LaPlante standing in her closet, dressed in her dead mother's clothes, with makeup smeared all over his face, holding a hatchet.
What?
That part is all true.
It's the 80s. Maybe he was doing like a little E.T. tribute there.
You would think. He tells her to be quiet and ties her up. Goes and ties up the sister, ties up the dad. Ties the whole family up.
Just backing up, though. If you open a closet and there's a man there dressed in your dead mom's clothes holding a hatchet, does he really need to tell you to be quiet? I feel like your brain's going to do one of two things.
Scream.
Or
just pass out from fear.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is like a
Jesus
nightmare.
Christ.
The idea of someone hiding in your house is so scary. And whenever there's those kind of like home invasion murders are the worst. And this is even more than a home invasion. It wasn't like I don't know. It was a home invasion, but somehow like the idea of like someone who's like waiting for you while you're like, he was in there while they were watching a movie. Ugh. Anyway, so he rounds up the family, ties them all up, tells them he's going to kill them. So start praying, leaves the room to go gather up the valuables from the house. He was, he's robbing them essentially, but the youngest daughter gets free from the ties or whatever, jumps out the window, runs to the neighbor's house, who call the cops before, the neighbor comes back over to the house with a gun. I'm not sure about that part. That was not in every version that I read. But anyway, so it goes and calls the cops. By the time the cops get there, Danny LaPlante is gone. So they
as mysterious as he came.
They free the kids, they free the dad. Everybody's fine. Some of the valuables are kind of
so dad was there for this.
He had just gotten home. They were going to bed. He was there.
Yeah, because the urban legends I've heard or seen reenactments of, the dad wasn't there and didn't believe the girls the first time it happened or something like that.
Yeah,
so.
okay, yeah, it could be.
No, I'm just saying.
No, I'm not sure. I mean, honest to God, like, maybe I'm just not looking in the right places, but I couldn't find a good descriptive article or anything about this crime. It just gave really bare bones things, and I couldn't find enough about like
there's no
leading
conviction
up to it.
for this crime, so there's not a
right,
good,
exactly. So there isn't anything. So it's a lot of like
it's all police reports and juveniles, and there's no
right. So this
record.
is a lot of like there's some news articles, but they're real brief. It's like a man and his family was held hostage by a teenage boy, or it's like my mother's sister's cousin's neighbor
took so much acid he thought he was a banana and tried to peel himself.
This is a crazy story that my mom told me about her cousin back in the 1980s. So it's like, what I mean? So anyways, but I think it was all three of them. We did watch that documentary.
Right, which wasn't...
No, not a documentary. It was like some stupid true crime reenactment show. And in that, I think maybe the dad wasn't home. But anyway. So the family is freaked out. And the kid is gone. He was gone. He had run away by the time they got there. So the family's really freaked out. So they understandably go and stay with some friends or family for a few days because they didn't want to stay in the house.
Okay.
So I think it was only a few days, but
they knew who it was though, right?
I think so. Yeah. I think so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think because the girl recognized him. Yeah. They did know who it was.
But the police couldn't find him because he's kind of...
They couldn't find him. They could not find him. So the family goes to stay with friends and family for a few days. And meanwhile, nobody's seen this kid. And actually, I think maybe no one had seen him for a while before this happened, too. So finally, after a few days, they're like, we got to go back home. So the dad and the two girls, they drive back home. They pull up in the driveway, and they see this kid standing in the window in the house upstairs. So they call.
Jesus.
Yeah, they call the cops. Everyone comes over. The cops are searching the house. They can't find him, but in the house, it's like complete lunacy in there. He's glued pennies all over the ceiling. He's written crazy shit all over the walls. He jerked off on everything in the house. Everything is covered with cum.
Well, that part doesn't seem that crazy. He's 15 years old. So.
Right. Again, I put a little asterisk by that because that was not any of the news reports. But
I don't know. I mean, as a married man,
I feel like that's safe to say that he did that.
I feel like anytime a guy's alone in the house, they're jerking off at everything.
So they cannot find him though. He's gone. Again, once they get in there, he's gone. Then finally, one of the police is in the basement, hears a noise coming from behind the washing machine. Pulls the washing machine away from the wall, and there's a hole in the wall, and in the hole is this kid, and he had been living in the space between the walls in the family's house.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. For at least the amount of time between the hatchet incident and this, and probably for a few days or some time before the hatchet thing. He was living in their fucking walls.
Resourceful, I guess. Jesus.
So he was like sneaking out in the night and like taking food and stuff. And like, but I mean, completely nuts.
I mean, that really plays into every nightmare. I mean, there's times in the morning when I wake up and I have my own little hobbit hole I go down to, and I just imagine turning a corner, and in my mind, it's always like a little gypsy child that's going to be staring at me with, with like a bandana and earrings, and the thought of there being a stranger in your house. Remember when there was a ghost upstairs at one time? Or I thought it was a ghost when I opened the door?
Oh, yeah. It was really Julia wrapped in a blanket.
Right, but I mean, yeah,
that was scary.
My reaction to an intruder is one of
fear.
I would say bravery and courage.
If by bravery and courage you mean shrieking and running around the corner to leave your wife exposed to the intruder,
I was secure. Yes. I was securing the area.
Were you?
Yeah, I was. I was putting my back against the wall and getting ready to fight for you and the family.
Oh God. So yeah, I mean, the details of that are not super. Like in one version I read, they all escaped through the bedroom window after he tied them up. In another version,
but
whatever. But anyways, basically, yes, he did chase them with a hatchet while wearing women's clothes with his face painted, and he was definitely living in the walls of their house,
goddamn walls,
which is fucking scary. Have you ever seen the movie Bad Ronald?
I have. And The Simpsons did a nice little period of that early on, too, where Bart had a twin brother that lived in the attic, and they would feed him fish heads.
If you have not seen Bad Ronald, it's fun. You cannot find it anywhere except for, like, on YouTube. It's really a shit movie. But
YouTube's everywhere now, though. It's everything. We're on YouTube, too. We have a channel. Whee. It's terrible. So...
Anyway.
In the fucking wall.
In the wall. I mean, I feel like I would never sleep again.
Was he, like... banging the girl at one point? Or no, they weren't. Okay, we don't know. They were like
it's unclear whether they were actually dating. They did know each other. Whether they were actually dating or whether like he kind of liked her and she just didn't really like him. I'm not sure that they were. I don't think they were actually boyfriend and girlfriend.
I feel like this guy was a super serious guy too. He's like, I'm Daniel LaPlante.
I feel like here's my take on it. If they had been dating, there's no way she was going to admit to that after the fact. You know.
But hey, tips the next boyfriend. There's a nice little place to hide in the house if you want to spend the weekend here.
That's so creepy. God. So anyway, after this, and so they did catch him, in the house. So they sent him to a Department of Youth Services detention center. So I think that was December, right? So he goes to this Department of Youth Services detention center until October 9th. When at that point case was transferred from juvenile court to the district court, and his mom posted $10,000 cash bail. He was due back in court December 11th.
Wait, so back
up.
His mom posted a $10,000 bail, but this kid's basically a runaway though too, right?
So a lot of the things that I read about this kid and his family and were that the family was kind of a mess. The kid's family was kind of this guy's family was kind of a mess. Like
clearly somebody loved him though. That's a decent amount of bail.
That's a decent amount of bail, but like I think they were not a real structured family. Maybe like
also. It's a pretty low bail for someone who's.
But he was a juvenile.
Even so,
and he didn't actually assault anyone, so maybe they couldn't get him on anything besides like what But it would have been breaking and
Home
entering.
invasion, stalking. He actually kidnapped them at one point, too. Because
but he was a juvenile, again. If they didn't charge him as an adult, what could they...
But if you're a juvenile and you're getting that little supervision at home, that you can be off dressing up in
Actually, I didn't know
clothes.
you could bail out juveniles.
Yeah, typically you can't. So he's probably as an adult at this point, maybe.
Maybe, I don't know. So anyways, but... He was,
the facts are fucked up here.
So he was. I really did do a lot of research on this.
I'm saying
because juvenile shit is hard to figure out the actual facts from because all those records are sealed. That's why it's hard to get.
And juvenile stuff is very interesting because if you're convicted of a crime as a juvenile, the judge has complete purview to sentence you to anything from community service to 8 years in juvenile detention. Juvenile court, the conviction there isn't a felony or a misdemeanor. It's just
a juvenile crime.
It makes you a ward of the court.
Right, so they can do whatever. Are there like sentencing guidelines though?
No.
No, it's totally up to the discretion of the judge.
It's totally up to the discretion of the judge and the probation department and everything else. Remember, there was a judge a few years back out in Pennsylvania, I think, who went to prison because he had a deal with one of those boys' training camps.
Oh yeah,
that kind of shit. No, it really the discretion
creepy.
is.
There's a lot of room for abuse though in the system, like. When it's just up to one person, they're any kind of...
There's a lot of room for abuse, but there's also a lot of opportunities to have sex with young boys.
Ew.
And that's where, people look at it that way. You look at it as abuse, whereas a pedophile looks at it as a great chance to molest a child. And... I don't know.
Ew, but I guess looking at it from a non-horrible pedophile point of view, they could be thinking. I guess the thought is they're juveniles. We want to rehabilitate them and not just lock them up.
Yeah, but I've been listening to a lot of...
This is a pretty fucked up crime.
I've been listening to a lot of Grant Cardone. He's all about trying to find better angles in the business, and he always says, try and imagine the angle that no one else is. So. We should look at this from the view of the pedophile who's underserved and undermarketed to.
Ew, stop. Okay. Stop talking about pedophiles. That's creepy.
Yeah, well, I'm a creepy guy, and you married me, so
go on. But you're not creepy in a pedophile way, so
that's what matters.
I
am not attracted to young boys at all.
No, thank God.
I just want to murder middle-aged men.
Do not. Stop it.
That I grew up with.
Oh, for Christ's sakes. Get over it.
Okay, sorry. You know who you are.
Okay. Just a little aside. If you're a middle school kid, first of all, you shouldn't be listening to this podcast. Second of all, you should be careful about bullying people because they are going to hold a grudge for the next forever.
Elementary school.
35, 45
Doesn't matter.
Years. Elementary.
It's just who they are. It's in their DNA.
Oh my God.
It wasn't like
who cares? Damn it. All right. So, Danny LaPlante...
Daniel LaPlante.
Daniel. I think he went by Danny, though.
Daniel, don't call me Tiger LaPlante.
So, before he reached adulthood, he had already done this horrible hiding people's walls, tying them up, threatening to kill them, jerking off on everything, stalking.
Again, the jerking off and everything and stalking, that's just normal teenage stuff.
So, by the way, Daniel LaPlante was 16 at that time.
Okay.
And also, I don't think I mentioned where this was. It doesn't really change the story at all. This was in Massachusetts. I just completely forgot to name the town.
Massachusetts.
So Danny LaPlante was 16 when he kidnapped this family, hid in their walls, yada, yada, yada. Creepy, creepy, creepy little shit. So he gets sent to a juvenile detention center until October. So that was from December to October.
There's no bouncing back from that. That's a thing.
It's not like it's a kid who broke into someone's house and stole their stereo. This is a kid who left home. Nobody noticed he was gone enough to even report him missing, by the way. He was only 16. And he was hiding in the walls of people's houses, dressed up in a dead woman's clothes, painted his face, threatened a family with a hatchet. Then when they left, glued pennies to the ceiling, wrote shit all over the walls, cut a hole in the wall and lived in it until they got home. My other thought was, what was he going to do when they got home? What was his plan?
He didn't have a plan, but he was.
I think he was going to try to kill them.
Well, that was pure intimidation, though. That was amazing. He's detached from any kind of moral code. He didn't give a fuck. He's gluing pennies to walls. He's ready to die. It's also
kind of amazing. This crime happened in these people's house, and the police came in at the time, couldn't find him. But then they didn't search the house for anything in between that and the family coming back.
I guess not.
I guess not. So anyways, I read, in one of the things I read, there was this one little quick mention, and I could never find anything else about it because, once again, juvenile records, but it said he had also had a charge at some point as a juvenile of a sexual assault on a 14-year-old girl. But there was nothing else I could find, no other details I could find about that.
Seems perfectly appropriate here. This guy is, he seems like
it doesn't
he's
seem surprising. He does seem nuts. So, but the weird thing is like...
I just want to... Okay, but I mean, if you're a juvenile court officer at this point...
Right.
These crimes...
They went a little light on him.
Well, it's like...
They could have kept him in for a long time.
It's like Ed Gein, In Cold Blood, various horror movies here. I mean, these aren't like... Yeah. Normally it's like shoplifting, assault.
Exactly.
Stealing a car.
Right.
Smoking pot.
Yeah.
These are... This guy should have been tagged and quartered.
I mean, he should have also been getting some serious...
Not quartered, sorry. Just tagged.
Serious mental health help.
Should have been locked up, too.
And he should have been... I mean, how they let him out after 10 months?
Well, this kind of behavior, this is exactly the kind of person that's going to do something horrible. And he did.
Yeah. So anyway, so they released him to his mother and stepfather.
Who were doing a bang-up job at this point.
They were doing a bang-up job. So...
God, stepfathers are the worst.
They really are.
Yeah.
Except for you.
Except for me,
no.
Yes.
And there's a lot of great stepfathers out there. It's not an easy job.
No one talks about the good ones.
No, they don't. Get a lot of bad press. Stepmothers do, too. Stepmother's always the evil stepmother. You know
what's really sucks, though? Whenever I Google things about being a stepfather, at some point in the search, stepfather porn pops up. Like in the top 20. Like stepfather tip. I mean, like, seriously.
Ew.
Yeah. It's a whole category of erotica, apparently.
That's disgusting.
It is.
That is so creepy.
Anyways, let's go on.
People are fucking sick. People are perverts.
I just want to keep acquiring more animals and hating people more.
Yeah, me too.
Animals are a lot better than people. Just like isolating myself.
No, people are crazy and scary.
God, I often
terrible.
I just imagine our house not being where it is, but being like on a lake where we can see the northern lights and there's nothing around, and we have an arsenal of rifles to shoot people if they come near us. That's how I see our life ending. It's for better or for worse. If we have to flee somewhere, fight off, the Trumpians in the woods, that's fine. But I don't know. I'm happy.
Well, I picture my end like being dragged off by people for being a heathen and
for the record, you
stake.
Probably should be burned at the stake at some point.
Anyway,
it's a hygienic way to go.
God, that's the worst. I'm like so scared of that. That's like the worst. I'm so scared of fire. I feel like maybe if I believed in past lives, I feel like in some past life I must have been burned at the stake because that idea that is terrifying.
Yeah, you've mentioned that before, being burned alive. Yeah.
It's the scariest way to go.
Not for me.
What's the scariest way for you?
I don't know. I think being buried alive would be
God, yeah.
pretty bad.
There's a lot of bad ways. A lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
I mean, being numbed and force-fed parts of my own body for a period of days or weeks by a person who's bent on torturing me would be
Any
bad.
kind of extended torture is bad.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Yeah.
It's real bad.
Do you ever see that medieval thing where they make you sit on a wooden pole and it slowly...
it slowly goes up your ass and impales you.
Right.
Yeah, that's brutal. Man, they did not mess around in the Middle Ages.
No.
Did some serious torture.
That's where the whole kill me now thing came up. People were just like, just kill me.
Yeah. They were kind of like,
mercy
the
killing.
Black Plague is going to kill me? Good, because I probably would have been tortured to death at some point.
Yeah, the goddamn Spanish Inquisition. What's Spain doing now? Sleeping at 10 o'clock in the morning and eating paella at 10 o'clock. Bunch of assholes.
This is why history is so amazing. You look back at like countries and populations that seem so mellow now, and then you look back in history, you're like, Jesus Christ,
Greece,
these guys were nuts.
Italy, Spain. Now they're barely countries at this point.
Well, they're like so relaxed. All they're doing is like drinking wine, eating seafood, taking siestas.
Italy had Mussolini though in World War II. I mean, and
right,
he had some.
Right. Oh yeah, he was not a good guy.
He was the one who would actually force feed his opponents laxatives, so they would actually dehydrate themselves through diarrhea, and
to death.
To death. That was one of his things.
Wow, that's brutal.
He basically would have people shit themselves to death in some form. That wasn't his only way of killing people, but like...
Yeah, you gotta really have a sadistic mind to do stuff like that.
But he made the trains run on time. And we're getting off topic here, so back to Mr. Plant. LaPlante.
So now we're in October 1987.
87 was like one of my favorite years. But
it was a good year.
Yeah.
He's released to his family. He's living with his mom and his stepdad. And he becomes engaged in a series of daytime burglaries in his neighborhood. Mid-October, he breaks into the home of Raymond Pindell and his family, and 2 .22 caliber guns and their holsters are stolen, and a sizable amount of cash. 3 weeks after that, his stepfather discovers one of the stolen guns and its holster in Danny's laundry basket. And when they confront Danny about it, he claims he obtained the gun a year earlier from some other place. He makes some excuse, and apparently they bought it.
Just backing up again.
Yeah?
What excuse do you have to have a gun in your room when you're a teenager? How is that an excuse?
Well, it's like, I got it last year. And then parents are like, oh, okay. He's 16 or 17 at this point.
These are bad parents.
Yeah, not great parents. Really crazy, messed up kid. Not great parents. It's a bad combination. So
it's the only combination.
Oh God! So this is goes from bad to worse.
Remember, parents, if your kids are crazy acting out, it is your fault. You are bad parents. Go on, Laura.
If your kids are what?
There's acting out. We have good kids.
Acting out. Yeah. Oh yeah, right. You can be great parents and have kids that act out. You absolutely can.
I disagree. It's all on the parents.
No.
I don't disagree.
And I remember knowing kids who's like were, their parents were so fucking neglectful and just such lazy shit parents, and the kids came out great. And it's so unfair. We grew
up in the cradle of Midwestern privilege in our little community here. How many fucked up kids were fucked up for no reason other than they just felt like being fucked up?
They were assholes.
Yeah.
So, he's breaking into some neighbors' houses basically in October and November. In November 16th, he breaks, or somebody, they're assuming that it was probably him, broke into the home of the Gustofson family. He takes a cordless telephone, 2 cable TV boxes, a remote control, and some coins from a silver dollar collection.
I can't even think back to that time, but were cable boxes a commodity that were,
I don't know, because this guy was kind of nuts too. So then he takes their cordless telephone and the cable box and puts them in his brother's tool cabinet. So then Danny tells his brother he was putting them there to prevent his parents from seeing them. And then around this time, his brother also sees him with the silver coins that are similar to those ones that were reported missing from the Gustofson's house.
No, weren't cable boxes in the 80s and in part of the 90s? If you had one, you could have cable. You would just... There was some weird... There was different kinds of cable boxes.
I don't know. Technology has moved so fucking fast and through so many phases between 1987 and now that I can't even remember. And I was a kid and I wasn't really...
But there used to be cable boxes that would show the channel on it too, though. Remember those?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, those were total 90s cable boxes.
Oh yeah, it took me a long time to get to it annoyed me when cable boxes no longer showed the channel.
Yeah, and now I can barely even... That wouldn't have fucking cable. So, I
know. It's... Anyway,
which is crazy. Old. I was watching live news on YouTube tonight, though. CNN, Fox, MSNBC all stream live.
Yeah.
So I'm watching what's happening in London as it's going down. I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know. It's a different world.
It sure is.
Sorry, guys. A little bit morose tonight because I just feel kind of sad about what happened in London. It's still unfolding. Anyways, I'll cheer up.
The world is a nightmare.
Jim Baker's alive, though.
And he's got some food buckets to gift to you.
Selling food buckets. God bless you, Jim Baker.
For a mere $2,500 donation, he will gift you.
All right, we're
8
getting
years of food.
So
okay, so
I'll shut up.
All right, no, don't like it when you go off on a tangent. So later on, various people described Danny as breaking into area homes around this time and terrorizing people by moving objects and leaving items behind. So people kind of, they'd come home or whatever, things would be missing, things would be moved around, things that weren't there were there. So he was creeping people out, basically in a big way, stealing stuff, being basically crazy, and apparently nobody was keeping tabs on him. He was described later by somebody as a, quote, time bomb, and that was pretty accurate.
We should keep track or predict, at least, when we talk about male killers, if they're cut or uncut, though. There's, nothing out there about who's got a foreskin.
You would like to do a study on that?
Well, did Ted Bundy have a foreskin? Did the Night Stalker have a foreskin?
I'm going to guess. I bet I could predict that based on, A, when people were born, and B, their ethnic and religious backgrounds.
Oh, I bet you could.
No, I'm just saying. And you know what? Anyone who is born any baby boomer in America is going to be circumcised.
And most of their kids. Most of their sons.
And a lot of their sons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we're getting into the whole, but really.
Right.
But Richard
it wasn't
Ramirez.
It wasn't until maybe 70s, 80s that people kind of started to think oh, maybe that we shouldn't. That's not necessary like they thought it was. Anyway.
The Catholics, though.
We are really going off.
The hardcore Catholics don't circumcise their sons in the Italian community. I know
Italians from the old country don't. You mean Italian Americans?
Yeah, if they just don't, because they feel that means, it's part of being Catholic. You don't get circumcised.
Yeah. I think in the 50s, the 50s were so weird. They were so weird about, hygiene and stuff that it became, a hygiene thing. They thought it was, a hygiene thing. That was, they discouraged mothers from breastfeeding. They encouraged everyone to circumcise their sons. They were, very...
Yeah, okay, but Ted Bundy, cut, uncut.
I would guess he was circumcised, but I don't know.
Well, there we go. This guy, cut, uncut.
I don't know. Why are we talking about it?
Because I've had 2 drinks, and I've been eating very healthy.
Why is it making you talk about it? So far, you keep going off in tangents about pedophilia and circumcision. Just stop it.
Fine. All right. I defer to you.
So, Danny LaPlante described as a time bomb. And he was. So, the thing with the hatchet was December 8th, 1986. On December 1st, 1987, so just short of a year after that, which I would like to just point out again, he should still have been in custody at this point. Priscilla Gustofson, who is a local preschool teacher, comes home from her job, I think, with her son, who was, I believe 5. Picked him up from the babysitters. She left her job, picked her son up from babysitters, got home to her house about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Her daughter, Abigail, who was a second grader, would have taken the bus home that day and gotten off the bus around 3:30 and gone home. So the Gustofson family lived 2 miles away from Danny LaPlante's house. So around 5:30, Andrew Gustofson, who's the father, who's a local lawyer, one of 2 in this small town, gets home from work. He just had closed a big deal earlier in the day. He wanted to celebrate with his wife. He was trying to call her starting around 3:45 in the afternoon to try to get her to find a babysitter for the kids so that they could go out and celebrate. And he wasn't getting any answer. So he comes home around 5:30 and he walks into the house, sees his wife's car there, walks into the house, walks into the kitchen, calls out for his wife, no answer. Calls the neighbor to ask if his wife was there. He had a bad feeling. Goes into the master bedroom and finds his wife's body face down on the bed. And she was dead. Her skin was gray, he testified. He ran downstairs and he called 911. He went back upstairs and he noticed 2 bullet holes in a pillow over her head. What they put together later was that Priscilla and William, who's 5-year-old, came home around 1, and Danny LaPlante was in the house, and they're not sure if his initial idea was just burglary and it went wrong, But I doubt it too. He was in the house. He tied up Priscilla. They found a lot of like things that were used as, what do they call them, ligatures or whatever, right? He ripped her shirt and bra off her, tied her to the bed, raped and sodomized her, put a pillow over her face, and shot her in the head.
He must have seen her somewhere else before. Because he
might have.
Well, I'm just saying.
They lived close by. It was a small town.
Guy covets.
It was like 8,000 people.
But the other house he was in, he had a crush on the girl.
He'd been in their house, so he clearly knew. He'd probably seen pictures of her. He was familiar with the house. He had broken into the house a month before.
Right.
Or 3 weeks before.
That's what I'm saying. So he had
2 weeks before, yeah.
Jesus Christ. What happened to William?
Well, they don't know in what order things happen, but at some point, he killed the son. He drowned him in a bathtub. And then...
Drowned him?
Uh-huh.
How the fuck do you drown him?
Hold him underwater.
No, I'm saying that's a pretty elaborate way.
I don't know. I mean, I think that there was also some, maybe he choked him and held him underwater at the same time. Yeah. And then the second grader, who was 7, came home at 3:30. So her mother and brother are already dead at this point. She gets off the bus and walks up the driveway to her house, and he was in there still and grabbed her and killed her drowned her in a different bathtub in the house.
And so the dad comes home to all this?
Yeah, but he didn't find his kids because he said, and he testified at the trial, they asked him, the district attorney asked him why he didn't look for his children, and they said, this is so sad. They said it was so quiet in the courtroom you could hear a pin drop, and that Andrew Gustofson started to cry and told the jury he was afraid he would find his children dead. So he didn't look for him. He called the police.
Oh my God.
I mean, I'm
going to cry.
I know, it was awful.
I can completely relate to this guy, like being excited.
I know.
I'm always excited about good stuff. I just want to go out. Oh my God.
It's awful. So the woman.
This guy fucking gets put in a pole. Fucking LaPlante.
So the mother was killed by gunshot wounds. The little boy was cause of death for both children was drowning, and the girl also suffered blunt trauma to the head and compression of the neck. So she probably surprised him coming home. So he probably hit her and choked her, then drowned her. They found semen on the bedspread. They found condom on the floor by the bed. They found a knotted sock that had been used as a gag, 7 ligatures. And in the bedroom, they found a bottle of beer that had been taken from the Gustofson refrigerator.
This is pissing me off.
In the kitchen wastebasket, they found several pieces of paper which were torn from the pages of a pornographic magazine.
This is pissing me off. This kid should never have been out. I mean, he kidnapped a family before. He hid in a house. This is a kid that should have been locked up until he was 21, monitored, tracked with a fucking tether. Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah.
What a fucking monster.
Yep, he was a monster. So yeah, that was December 1st, right? Yeah, December 1st. Yeah, he was a terrible, terrible monster. And I had something else I was going to say about that. Oh, by the time the dad got home and found all this, Daniel LaPlante was at his niece's birthday party in a neighboring town. So he was not feeling bad about it at all.
No, I mean, I'm sure he felt good. I mean, here's the thing. Guys that rape, people that rape, well, it's always guys.
Yeah, let's not kid ourselves. It's always guys.
It's not a gratification. If it's about gratification, he would have gone home and fallen asleep because he would have felt satisfied. It's about power. It's always about power. It's a fantasy, and here this was clearly a fantasy with this woman. Whatever he imagined was going to happen here. I mean, this husband of hers is lucky he's still alive because he seems so insane based on his prior acts, but he wasn't that he would have wanted to kill this guy so he could be with her. But he killed the woman. He must have been fantasizing about this scenario for a month. And he came back to the house, lay in wait, raped her, sodomized her, killed her. Killed her 2 kids, incidentally. I mean, that's a lot. And it wasn't about sex. It wasn't spontaneous. I mean, that was the whole point of him being there.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's really awful. So, I can't remember. I couldn't quite. Let's see. What was it that made them think of him? Oh, I don't know. Perhaps because he was just crazy. I don't know. Anyways, they went to his house. They went to Danny's house on December 2nd and to speak to him. Oh, probably because he had like this track record of burglary, right? And they knew this house had been broken into, and then this happened. And then I think maybe somebody had come forward. Oh, I know what it was. She was shot with a .22, and those had been stolen from another house, and somebody had seen them, blah, blah, blah. They matched those bullets to the stolen.
And .22s are not that common, too. That's the thing.
Yeah.
They're not
so
that uncommon,
Danny, of course, had left his house by then. He left his house on December 2nd after the state police arrived and asked to speak to him. And the next afternoon, he broke into a couple of homes in another nearby town, stole a .32 caliber revolver, and then went to a third home. The woman living there, Pamela McKella, he ordered her at gunpoint to drive him in her van to the town of Fitchburg, which he had family living there. She jumped out of the van, and he continued on in her van.
What was her name?
Her name was Pamela McKella.
I like Pamela. Good move, Pamela.
Yeah, seriously. Jump out of the fucking van if you're being held at gunpoint.
Yeah, we're here to avoid... Again,
she avoided being murdered.
I want to get to the avoid murder thing here, too, but let's go on here. This is...
Okay, anyways, he was finally arrested hiding behind a dumpster. When they took him to the station, and while they were searching him, they found a loaded .32 caliber revolver hidden in his underwear and a .32 caliber bullet inside his shoe.
Can I back up here? Because what I don't understand is after he broke into this family's house the first time, how did he get in there a second time? I mean, same way? Or is that... I don't know. I feel like they would have taken precautions. Because if
That's a good question.
I just...
People are not that careful. They leave windows unlocked.
I guess, but
and I don't know. He'd been sneaking in and out of houses, and who knows if he'd stolen a spare key or what? I don't know.
Oh my God!
Yeah, he's a creepy looking kid, isn't he?
I want him to die.
Still alive, unfortunately.
Well, I'll be writing a letter to him in prison.
Please don't engage with these guys. Ugh. That's what creeps me out the most about reading about these things is when I'm like, holy shit, this guy's still alive. Like, you read about some horrific thing that happened 25, 30 years ago or whatever, and you're like, man, that was horrific. And now it's over. But then you think...
I hope this but he's trying to take a sentence reduction. I mean, I hope, if anything, this podcast will help keep him behind bars.
Let me get to that, because I've got details about that.
Okay, this guy... I don't believe.
Don't worry, he did not get the sentence reduction.
But somebody should kill this person, not the state. But somebody should, if they can kill Dahmer, kill this fucker.
He didn't get the death penalty. He didn't have the death penalty in Massachusetts.
I don't believe in the death penalty. I believe in.
I don't either.
Murder.
But then I would think, sometimes I was reading something about BTK, and I'm like, God, this guy's still alive. So every day, this guy wakes up. He has breakfast. Yeah, it's in prison, which I realize isn't ideal, but he's alive. He's still eating. He's still going outside. Still reading.
The state should not murder people in cold blood. That's not civilized.
I know, but it's...
Someone else should murder him in cold blood. Someone who's not.
I'm surprised there are not more vigilante killings. Remember that case? Okay, do you remember... This is total sidebar. Do you remember that case, and this was also in the 80s or in the 90s, where this guy shot the man who had been molesting his son? It was the son and his son's soccer coach.
He
was molesting him over a year or more.
He did not go to prison.
He didn't. It was. There's video of it, and it is badass. He is at a payphone. He's playing he's looking like he's talking on the payphone on the payphone at the airport.
On the payphone.
And they're escorting this guy through the airport. And he just drops the phone, turns, boom, shoots the guy in the head, dead. And they rush over and take him down. And he shot the guy dead. And it was that's so satisfying. I mean, I get that. Yes, perhaps it would have been more torturous for that guy to, be convicted of raping a child and go to prison and be in prison. But on the other hand, somebody does that to your kid, you kind of want to just think that person's wiped off the face of the earth. I mean, I totally understand why that dad did that. Totally.
If anyone hurt our kids, I would not just hurt the person. I'd wipe out their gene pool.
No, that's not fair. There's a lot of people who are...
It's not fair, but
there are people who are related to terrible people, and it's through no fault of their own.
Well,
but if somebody hurt my kids, I would want to
I'd make
exact
sure those
vengeance.
chains didn't get passed
I would
on.
want to exact vengeance on the person who hurt my family member.
And their parents and their
okay,
siblings.
stop it. That's...
What?
They're siblings?
Yeah.
What if one of your siblings murdered somebody and then someone tried to kill you because you're related? That doesn't make any sense.
I would destroy them.
No, because you know what? You're so by saying that, you're saying that you believe that it's in the nature versus nurture argument that it's all nurture, that their family fucked them up, because you know that can't be true. Because look at all these guys. No, look at these murderers, and their family members are often totally normal. There is something wrong in the wiring. Something's screwed up. I'm not saying that nurture doesn't often play a role, and I know...
I'm sure these parents did something here.
Okay, as a parent yourself, the parents are not always to blame.
This kid is not being supervised.
Well, this kid, yeah, I mean, he's not being supervised, but just because you're not supervised, how many friends did you have who had negligent parents didn't dress up in fucking war paint and chase people with hatchets and then rape and murder a preschool teacher and drown her kids in the bathtub?
I'm just saying...
That's not a logical line of thinking.
It's not logical, but I'm just saying at some point, I will be a consequence of someone else's actions if this ever happens. So,
all right. So don't...
A living embodiment.
Piss them off, people. So the judge did say later on that he was one of the handful of those convicted murderers who really, truly deserved the death penalty. He was 18 years old at the trial. It was a 3-week trial. He never showed any emotion or remorse. He was convicted of multiple life sentences. One more horrible little detail was that the mom was pregnant.
Of course she was.
Yeah. So that's fun. What a fucking nightmare this guy is. So that was all in 1987. So he's been in prison for a long time, and this is sort of a fun little crazy pants side note here. Again, another side note. This doesn't really have anything to do with this story, but in 2013, Daniel LaPlante sued the Massachusetts Department of Corrections because he claimed he was denied things that he needed to practice his religion. So he said that he was a Wicca, and that he needed colored pens, carrot cake, and dragon blood, which is the name of a kind of oil. He said that the cake would, quote, excite the senses, and that he specifically needed carrot cake in January and chocolate cake in February. And he needed dragon blood oil to, he said in his lawsuit that he needed these things to work magic, perform rituals, and cast spells. A local pagan from the Boston area said that, in fact, Daniel LaPlante does not need these items to practice being a Wicca. It was a ridiculous lawsuit, which, of course, he lost. He was also acting as his own attorney, of course.
Can he get out of prison, though, at some point?
So here's what happened.
For 45 years. In
March 2017, so just recently, he made a bid to get a reduced sentence because the state of Massachusetts ruled a few years ago that juveniles cannot be sentenced to life in prison without parole. So he was only 17 when he was sentenced, I guess, or maybe he was 18. I think he was 17 when he committed it, right? So whatever. So he tried to get his sentence reduced so that the something like the charges would he would serve the sentences concurrently or something so that he would be up for parole. Would have made him up for parole this year. But so during this bid for a reduced sentence, he said the following. This is his quote. He said, "Words cannot fully capture what I have done. I murdered 3 innocent people. Because of me, a 5-year-old boy will never turn 6. There's a 7-year-old girl that will never turn 8. Because of me, a woman will never be able to give birth to her third child. I robbed an unborn child of his first breath. A husband was never able to hear from his family, I love you. I do not have the words to fully express my profound sorrow, but I am truly sorry for the harm I have caused. From the very essence of who I am, from the depth of my soul, I am sorry. So that was his quote, trying to get his sentence reduced. Many family members of the Gustofsons came to that hearing and made statements. Let's see. A child and adolescent general and forensic psychiatrist who had interviewed LaPlante for 8 hours a year ago gave a statement and said he showed no empathy at any point in time. He continued to minimize his behaviors. After this statement, he pointed out that after the murders, LaPlante went home, ate a piece of pie after killing the family. There's no evidence of emotion, no feelings, none whatsoever. He killed an entire family in a very systematic fashion. He pointed out that the actions were in contrast to the, quote, impulsive and scattered actions that are more common with juveniles, that he was very methodical. He said these murders had nothing to do with his youth or his age. There's no evidence that shows impulsivity is driving these offenses. He determined... Yeah,
I agree.
I know. This is not like a kid who's robbing somebody and gets screwed up and he shoots them out of, just disorganized, whatever.
The only thing about his youth that played into these crimes is the fact that he didn't think about the consequences. I mean, that's where the Ted Bundy's... he wasn't a refined enough criminal to get away with this. A lot of these people that we catch at this early age...
He just wasn't smart enough.
No, but he's patient, though. That's the thing. These were not impulsive crimes.
He didn't have anything else going on. He had nothing but time.
Yeah.
This forensic psychiatrist said that he suffers from antisocial personality disorder, which means that he disregards the rights of others and lacks remorse, and his actions are not consistent with someone who is truly remorseful. So Daniel LaPlante's defense attorney made a case that he suffered from depression as a teenager, he was dyslexic, and he had significant learning disabilities. And he also pointed out that Daniel LaPlante has behaved well behind bars, was able to transfer out of a max security prison, and has held leadership positions in inmate committees, and has not been involved with interpersonal violence in 14 years. Who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
So after that testimony, family members of the Gustofsons took the stand to give victim impact statements, and they showed photographs at the time too, which I'm sure were, heartbreaking. So the sister of the woman who was murdered said the triple murder was not a childish mistake. And she said Priscilla, that was the wife who was murdered,
right,
would never want him out to prey on society. No one is safe if he's ever released. Carol Gustofson, who was Andrew's second wife, who he married after his first wife was murdered, she gave a victim statement, and she said that the night of December 1st was supposed to be a night of celebration. And she said it became a nightmare that plagued him all his life. Getting home to your family to find your spouse tied to the bed and shot in the head. Andrew Gustofson died in 2014, by the way, of cancer.
Who did?
Andrew Gustofson, the husband.
Oh, he died?
He died, yeah. His second wife, said that even on his deathbed, Andrew could not forgive Daniel LaPlante. According to his second wife, Carol, she said that he told her, do not let this man out. He should rot in prison.
He wore 2 wedding rings his whole life, one for the first wife and...
That is so heartbreaking. And that had to be hard for that second wife. I mean, can you imagine marrying someone who had that kind of
Well, he said he had dreams every night of his 3 kids, even the unborn one, and said he believed in an afterlife because they were talking to him.
Oh, God.
I mean, he was tortured. I mean,
he did go on to remarry and have 2 daughters, and he was very religious, and apparently his strong faith kind of helped him through it. But I mean, that's gotta just pretty much ruin your life.
Are you sure he's not getting it out early? I'm just reading.
Yes, I'm going to read you the conclusion here.
Okay.
LaPlante, who is now 46, was hoping for a sentence reduction based on court decisions that say juveniles cannot be sentenced to life in prison without parole, which I already said. And he was wanting to be resentenced to serve his life sentences concurrently, which would have made him eligible for a parole hearing after 30 years in prison, which would make it this year. the prosecution wanted 3 consecutive life sentences. That would mean he would not be eligible for parole for at least 15 more years.
Still, it's too soon.
Well, you think he'll get paroled? I bet he won't. But anyways, the judge agreed with the family and said, quote, Mr. LaPlante has not been rehabilitated. She resentenced him to the maximum possible punishment, 3 consecutive life sentences with the opportunity to parole after 45 years from the date of his conviction, and I bet you he will never, ever get paroled.
But again, there's people out there who go into these pro bono cases. They go and meet someone in their mid-60s or late 60s who he was a model prisoner. He's a good guy. You know what? If you do 40 years in prison, you're going to be a model prisoner. That's fine, because that's your only model. I fucking hate the idea of these murderers ever leaving prison. They don't deserve to live outside of those walls. They don't.
No.
And this guy, again...
I don't think this guy's ever getting out. This is a horrific triple murder.
Maybe in 20 years,
child murderer.
Some big firm will send a pro bono person there and who will tell...
You know what?
Yeah, well...
No, this was a high-profile case. He cold-bloodedly killed children. They've got a lot of family who are still alive, who will go to any parole board that, he comes up against and give these statements. I will be surprised.
I'm so fired up. I'm so fired up with this right now.
If I were the sister of that woman or one of those family members he got paroled, I would just hunt him down and kill him. Because
I'm thinking about killing him.
He is pure evil. That is pure evil. And it doesn't even see, here's the thing. So you can say, he's crazy. And he probably is.
Whatever.
He's got to be mentally ill. But he's also.
Prune the tree. Prune the crazy tree.
Okay, stop. There's mentally ill, Richard Chase.
Oh, yeah.
He was a horrific spree killer.
Product killer.
Totally fucking nuts is what he was. He thought his bones were moving around his head. He thought Nazis were trying to dry up his blood. He thought he had to drink blood to survive. He was truly paranoid schizophrenic, murdered a bunch of people, but truly, 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 in professional terms, crazy. He was totally out of touch. This kid was in touch with reality. He knew he was killing these people. He cold-bloodedly and calculatedly killed a mother and her 2 kids. And he would have killed that other family, I bet, if they had not seen him in the window when they came home. I mean, what do you think he was waiting in the walls for? This guy is a cold-blooded killer.
And rapist.
A rapist.
Honestly, no, but the murder... Here's the thing. The murders weren't torture. The murders were there just because they were in the way.
The kids, for sure.
Yeah, and he killed the woman afterwards, too, which means he wasn't so crazy that he thought he could have a relationship with her. He wanted to rape her and then cover up the crime. I mean, this is the worst kind of criminal. Yeah, you're right. He would have killed that... he probably would have raped the girl that he thought he was dating. And then killed everybody else.
Yes, I see what you're saying. He wasn't a... He was not a process killer who enjoyed the act of killing. He was killing them because he didn't want to leave witnesses. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Probably. But, does that make him...
Well, and he wasn't in love. He didn't... Okay, sometimes with these stalkers, they think they were, originally it's he thought he was dating this girl. He wasn't dating her. He's kind of stalking her. If he thought he could, have a relationship with the woman that he killed, he wouldn't have killed her. He would have kept her alive. This guy was, he was a sick little fuck. God, what an asshole.
Yeah. I know, it's hard to make this entertaining and light, because this is pretty dark.
I know, I'm all fired up right now. So, on that happy note...
And I do want to point out that Daniel LaPlante lost his head of hair in the last...
And he's bald. And like most bald people, he kills people.
I was looking at the pictures of him when he was 17. He's got this, thick head of hair, and now...
Well, I guess the purpose of this podcast, besides to entertain you, is to look at these scenarios and think, well, how could we stop this from happening to us? And I just got to think that it just boggles my mind that he broke into this house and they didn't secure the house after that. I know it's the 80s, but you can still buy a fucking alarm. Especially if you're married to a lawyer or someone who works with elements that might be nefarious. Get a goddamn alarm system, people.
Yeah, I wonder how he did.
And you know what?
No, but I think that saying, lock your fucking doors. Lock your doors. Get a dog.
Get a pit bull.
Oh, man. You know what? It's scary, though. Home invasion is one of those really scary crimes. Because even when you're just robbed, if you're in your home, or just, is it robbed if you're there?
Well, in Michigan, a home invasion is as serious as a kidnapping, as the highest degree of rape, and even murder. It's a life sentence crime. It's 20 years or more. Well, it doesn't usually pan out that way, but I'm saying it's a top-tier felony. Home invasion is defined as using force to break into a domicile when someone who lives there is home.
Yeah.
Whether you know it or don't know it. Because what happens when people break into houses and people are there, that's when bad shit happens. That's when all this shit happens. I mean, yeah, the law doesn't really punish people that break into houses when no one's home anywhere near as severely as a home invasion. I mean, it's treated like a violent crime.
It should be. Because if you're going to break into someone's home while they are there, I think that implies that you are capable and willing to do some kind of bodily harm. Because you've got to assume, if you're going to do that crime, you've got to assume that person realizes the strong possibility they're going to come face to face with the homeowners, right?
Right. Well, so I guess call Honeywell, get an alarm. That's how you avoid this kind of shit from happening. And we'll post this guy's prison pen pal account on our Facebook page, so you can send him shitty letters. But he's going to die in prison, I hope.
I hope so.
And I'm sorry to get so serious and fired up. I'm not my normal jovial self, but I don't know. That just kind of hit me like the dad being in such a good mood, and he comes home and his whole goddamn family's dead because this little shitbag broke into the house the second time. I don't know.
Yeah.
I love you.
This episode was not that fun.
I think it's a good episode.
It really wasn't. This is such a dark. I don't like talking about child murders. That really brings me down. It's like hard to be light talking about like a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old being murdered.
I mean, maybe a happy-go-lucky 8 nurses getting murdered is more fun or something like that. But no, but just the dad coming home in a good mood, wanting to go out, and like, I just see myself in that role. I really do.
Ugh.
It scares me.
I know, it's creepy.
And I think I'm gonna go watch a funny movie now.
That sounds good.
All right. Love you guys. Stay safe. Lock your doors. Get an alarm. Shoot a motherfucker in the face that threatens your family. And get a pit bull. That's how you avoid these kind of things from happening.
Or any dog, really.
But
not a tiny dog.
Get a pit bull.
No, get a dog with a big bark.
Pit bull.
No.
Tie a gun to it. All right.
Tie a gun to your pit bull.
Just so you know, if you're still listening here, we're going to try and aim to do podcasts every 2 weeks. Release Sunday nights, Monday mornings.
I promise the next one will be more fun.
Oh, yeah. This is still fun. I'm having fun. We had some good lines in there. Pedophiles. It's going to be one of our shorter podcasts. It'll be less than an hour and a half. That's fine.
Wow.
And
it's our shortest one yet.
Yeah. But you know what? As always, check out Ryan Sean O'Reilly. He writes stuff. He's a good dude. And he needs to write more because it's been a while since he's published anything, and God knows why it's taking so goddamn long. But Ryan, get on that shit. All right. Until next time, stay safe. Love y'all.
See you later.
Bye. Thank you once again for listening to How to Avoid Murder and Other Awkward Situations. If you're listening to this, that means you haven't been murdered, and we've done our job. Make sure you check us out on Facebook at How to Avoid Murder, or online on the World Wide Web at avoidmurder.com. And until next time, stay safe.